If you travel to Spain, you've probably eaten the food, and if you've eaten the food, you've probably done it in a cafe or in a bar. And a couple of the things that you can almost always find in any Spanish bar are tortilla española, or Spanish omelet, and pinchos morunos, which are little pork kebabs, spicy pork kebabs. So today we're doing a twofer. We're going to do tortilla española, and we're going to do pinchos morunos. And we're going to start with the pinchos, particularly the marinade. So here are my ingredients. I have pork loin, roughly 2 pounds, and we're going to chop that up into pieces that are around 1 inch square, okay? And then we're going to put it in a marinade consisting of 2 teaspoons of cumin, ½ teaspoon of coriander, a couple of cloves of garlic or more, 2 teaspoons of paprika, and this is imported Spanish smoked paprika, which is amazing. And we have a 1/4 cup of olive oil, about a ½ teaspoon of crushed red pepper, ½ teaspoon of salt, and a 1/4 teaspoon. What we're going to do first of all is make the marinade, and to do that we're going to take all of these ingredients, the salt, the pepper, the crushed red pepper flakes, the coriander, the cumin, the paprika, the garlic, and the olive oil. Pour that all in a bowl, stir it around until it's well blended. Next we're going to add our pork. Stir it around until everything is well coated, and you know what I like to do sometimes is I like to do it by hand. Stir it around until it is well coated. Then we're going to cover it, and we will put it in the fridge and let it marinate for at least 4 hours, preferably overnight, but if you get it going for at least 4 hours, you should be in good shape. Okay, so here's the meat. It is marinating. We put plastic wrap over it, and while it's in the fridge, let's get started on our tortilla española. So first of all, what is tortilla española? Let me tell you what it's not. It is not one of these. This is a Mexican tortilla. Wonderful. I love them, especially fresh off the griddle with a little bit of melted butter on it. But when we're talking about Spanish tortilla, we're talking about something completely different. The only thing it has in common with a Mexican tortilla is its shape. A Spanish tortilla is an egg and potato dish. Now here's the thing. A lot of people go to Spain. They'll order some tortilla, they'll eat it, they love it, they come home and they try and duplicate the dish here in the States, but they get a few things wrong. First of all, people seem to think that tortilla is basically a potato dish held together with just the bare minimum of eggs, when in reality what you should be thinking about with tortilla is it's an egg dish with potato in it, so you don't want to skimp on the eggs. Second thing, you don't want to skimp on the oil. Americans, we have this tendency to try and use the minimum of oil possible. To do tortilla española correctly, you need to use a vast quantities of olive oil. There's just no other way around it. So let's look at our ingredients. First of all, potatoes. Now, if we look at this, I've diced it. My preferred dice is about a ½ inch around and about 1/8 of an inch thick. Okay. Have about 4 cloves of garlic here. We've got a medium onion diced, 6 eggs, salt, pepper, oil. What quantities of salt, pepper, and oil? Well, Spanish measurements can be a little bit vague, so for now let's just call it vast quantities. All right, so let's get working. Notice now we have a vast lake of oil going in the pan. I'm going to add the potatoes to that and start them cooking. Now the thing to remember about this is we do not want the oil too hot, because we're really not so much frying the eggs and the onions and the garlic. What we're really trying to do is poach them in oil, essentially, because you want to cook them, but you don't want them to get brown. All right? So we are going to cook this together long enough for the potatoes to be tender, the onions to be tender, but not brown. Okay, this has been going for about 8 minutes now. While it was cooking, I put a little pinch of salt in, a little pinch of pepper. I tested it a minute or so ago with the fork just to see, and it is soft but not flabby. You don't want it to be mushy, but you do want it to be done. Okay. Now a word about the oil. or the quantity of the oil. Some people might be concerned about the amount of oil. First of all, I have seen housewives in Spain use probably twice as much oil as I put in this pan, so I was actually being quite chintzy with it. Second of all, most of it's going to drain off, and what we're going to do right now is drain the potatoes. I've got a colander here, and I'm going to drain. I'm going to pour the potatoes off into the colander, and we're going to set those aside while we work on the egg. Okay, so we have the 6 eggs have been cracked and put into this bowl. We're going to take our fork and we are going to beat them lightly. You don't want to whip them. You just want to lightly beat them. Okay. And then we will mix in our potatoes into the eggs. Alright. We are going to stir them around a little bit so that the egg gets nicely distributed throughout the potatoes. Okay, now this needs to be pretty well seasoned. If you're nervous about testing the mixture, I understand. This needs salt, lots of it. So we're going to throw in some salt, and we are going to throw in a little bit of pepper, and we will mix it around. Okay, so here we are. I've changed pans because my non-stick pan wasn't working that great. So I've got this pan. It's an experiment. Hopefully it'll work. Usually I try to use a non-stick pan. I'm putting some of the oil back in the pan. It's heated up pretty good. All right. And now we are going to take our potato and egg mixture and pour it in there. Spread it out a little bit, and we are going to let it cook until the bottom is set, and then we'll turn it over. Okay, now is the moment of truth. Once it's set on the bottom and cooked for a few minutes, we have to flip it. To flip it, you need a plate big enough to cover your pan. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to put the plate over the pan. Then we come this way, and in a gentle swinging motion, we are going to flip it over, and then we will slide it back into the pan. And then what I like to do is take the spoon and organize everything so it looks nice. And we will cook it for a little while on this side. So most recipes will tell you just to flip it once. I like to do it a couple of times. First of all, I like to poke a little hole in it and see how it's doing. And you notice that this is still very liquidy in here. It's starting to get brown on the bottom. We'll let it go a couple more minutes and then we'll flip it again. If you have a pan with a tight-fitting lid, so much the better, but I don't, so I'm using the plate. Put the plate over. Flip it again. Got a little stickage here. That's a shame. But anyway, I'm going to cook it again for a little while on this side. So there's no set amount of time that you're going to cook this. Basically, you're cooking it at about a medium temperature to the degree of doneness that you want, where it's not too runny, but it's not super dry either. You can take it off the stove. We're just going to slide it out onto a paper towel lined plate. We're going to let this cool for a little while. I prefer to eat it at room temperature. Other people like it really hot or warm. It's generally not as good cold. If you put it in the fridge, just make sure it comes back up to room temperature before you eat it. Alright, so I took the meat out of the fridge and I put it onto skewers. I'm using metal skewers, and when I use metal skewers, I like to double them up because otherwise the meat tends to spin freely. So let's put these onto the grill, and we'll let them go 5 or 10 minutes per side. We let our tortilla sit and drain on paper towels for a little while. This is what it looks like inside. Let's cut a little piece, and we will put it on our plate. I like to have it with a little bit of fresh tomato just dribbled with a little bit of olive oil and sprinkled with a little bit of kosher salt as a nice simple salad on the side. And then we have our pinchos, which turned out really nice. Slide them off here. And there you have a light dinner of tapas. Now this is cooked for about 20 minutes, maybe about 25. It should still be moist and tender on the inside, but cooked, marinated to perfection, absolutely delicious.